Ayan, mga kameta! Kamusta kayo dyan? Sorry, medyo, oof, was a long day. It was a long day. Medyo kailangan natin magpahinga kanina. Siyempre, nanood tayo ng football hanggang, oof, 5 a.m. ba yun? And then I had to do a talk with Stanford University just a few hours later. So, kailangan natin naman konting pahinga kanina. And then yun pa, thanks sa mga trolls, nalaman pa natin, tinitroll pa tayong kabila, no? Including people that I thought, can, know better than messing around with people like me. Anyway, today we want to do something constructive. We want to discuss about, three personalities that I think are controversial to some people, but very, very dear to a lot of people, especially people who believe in reformist politics, especially yung mga naniniwala sa tunay na demokrasya, yung mga naniniwala sa checks and balances, yung mga naniniwala sa reforma. Uh, you know, so that's why I thought maganda na balikan natin itong mga kameta, itong issue ni, balikan ko talaga yung issue ni Leni, Ma'am Leni. And then of course, I want to also go back dun sa Anwar Ibrahim, yung current Prime Minister of Malaysia, and why he is so looked up to the Aquinos of the Philippines. No, very very interesting yan. No, and this is of course within a bigger context. I mean, not to be sacrilegious, but remember if you look at Luke 4, 24 by no less than Jesus says that the prophets are often not welcome in their own uh, hometown or their own home country. Um, Now, we are not saying that our political figures are necessarily, religious figures or etc. What I'm saying is that it's interesting because minsan parang mas na-appreciate yung mga ibang leaders dito sa Pilipinas, ay sa abroad kaysa dito sa Pilipinas. Especially yung mga reformist, more liberally minded leaders dito sa Pilipinas. And that's the context within which, of course, mga kameta, mahalaga na pag-usapan itong dedication, ng obituary na sinulat ni Anwar Ibrahim for Aquino, because I think that needs proper contextualization. No, that needs proper contextualization. Again, I'm trying to be very sober about it. Ayoko ng bardagulan, ayoko ng away-away, something like that. We do it once in a while here and there. I think naman it's good. Kailangan yan para may konting but at the end of the day, guys, we're very serious people here. No? We're serious people. We're here dahil naniniwala tayo sa civilized discourse, respectful discourse. And kung minsan nagkakamali tayo, of course, inaayos natin yan. So ako, for me, I have no, if I were to have the right to talk about progressive leaders, we have to embody it in our own behavior. Okay, ang dami na natin sinabi. Okay, hindi. Una-una gusto kong balikan itong Anwar Ibrahim and Aquino context because, one of the things that saddens me is this. Just to be clear, no, on the record, I have criticize all Filipino presidents, as far as I know, no? At the same time, I've given credit where credit is due. No? So, dun sa mga gusto want to box us into a specific camp or not, I don't know what on earth are you, you know what I'm saying, right? Or anong cave ka because if you bother to read and Google research, you can say I was critical of all presidents, including President Aquino. In fact, in response to one of my criticisms of him, I had a kind of a long discussion with the former president at some point. I just felt that nagkakulang talaga siya dun sa preparation and responses dun sa mga sapano. I felt that structural economic reforms were not fully pushed to their logical limit. I just felt the infrastructure development projects started a bit late. I felt there's too much confrontation with China, but not enough calibrated engagement. At the same time, there was too much faith being put in the U.S. without pressuring US to be a much more reliable ally. So I have said many things about the previous president's administration. Of course, some of you know lang me because of what I said probably about Tatay Digong or even si Junior, ganun. But even with si Pinoy, no? I wrote a lot about his legacy. I wrote a lot about his shortcomings, strengths, etc. But one thing that is interesting to keep in mind, mga kameta, is actually if you go all around the world, especially in the chattering, among the circles of chattering classes, if you go among investors, top journalists, if you go a lot of academic circles, right, there's clearly, of course, a recognition ng mga kakulangan ng mga iba't ibang presidents sa Pilipinas. But they're also very aware that, objectively speaking, President Aquino was able to achieve a lot on many fronts. Although of course 6 years sometimes is really not enough. So sometimes a part of me thinks baka naman kailangan natin ng parliamentary system, no? But as I said, there's no magic solution, and sometimes the parliamentary system can keep a bad guy in also for a very, very long time, no? Or give undue influence to very, very small parties, or create a lot of political chaos. Case in point, look at just the number of elections we have had in UK, in Australia, in Israel, many democracies, much more mature supposed democracies around the world na napaka-unstable over the past 4 or 5 years alone. Ang dami, half a dozen elections pa nga yung iba, diba? But nonetheless, I feel that 6 years is not enough if you are a leader with good intentions and a certain degree of success, no? Kaya nga siguro si Aquino was not able to saw to its logical limit yung mga kanyang mga best practices, yung mga ganyang best policies among others. Ay, nakita niyo, windang talaga ako kasi pagod ako and I have to wake up very early, etc. So, pasensya na kung I'm not as sharp and I'm trying my best not to be bardagulan or anything like that. Okay, we're trying to be as nice as possible here. Now, mga kameta, let me just bring out some of the things that the current Prime Minister of Malaysia said about our former president, because it matters, because it put things into context. Kung alam niyo, of course, yung kasaysayan ni Anwar Ibrahim, it took him almost 3 decades, guys, para makamit niya itong position ng Prime Ministerial Office. And his road to the Prime Minister Office was not well trodden. It was a perilous road. 2 beses yata siya nakulong, as far as I know. He was charged with crazy, accusations, including sodomy charges, etc. Nakulong siya for that. There were all sorts of crazy, shenanigans visited upon him. He faced so much marginalization and hatred, including from his former mentor, which we happened to, of course, to interview, Prime Minister Mahathir. And then, of course, they were kind of ally with Mahathir again later on, but that didn't also work out. So, 3 dekada niya po wino-work itong way niya to the office of the Prime Minister, because repeatedly, yung mga mas trapo, yung mga mas traditional politician, repeatedly yung mga less reformist, more ultra-conservative ones would have a heads up. And as I said, when Mahathir came back a few years ago, everyone thought that there would be a power transition, there would be power sharing. It didn't happen again, no? Pinahintay na naman siya ni Mahathir. So eventually, we have, after 3 decades of very, very difficult path, no? Difficult. Grabe talaga, guys. Pag alam niyo yung buhay niya, grabe. Para maalala mo kaya, MMK level yan, yung nangyari kay Anwar. Super MMK. I mean, grabe. Kung titignan niyo yung things he had to go through. And ilan election na natalo siya, even though at least in 1 or 2 of those elections, his party got the most number of popular votes, no? Or his coalition was able to win the popular votes, no? So multiple times, late 2000s pa lang, naalala ko, I was writing about Anwar and his party's attempt to unseat the Trapo Omnu Barisan Nacional kind of coalition, and repeatedly ran, and he would lose, sometimes very close, sometimes he would win, but because na gerrymander, ibig sabihin lahat ng mga supporters niya na malaking syudad, isang distrito lang, and then yung mga maliliit na pro-administration ng kabila, 3 district bigla. So biglang 3 parliamentary seat here, dito isa lang parliamentary seat. So even if mas maraming bumoto sa'yo, mas marami kang makuha ang parliamentary seat, therefore you can sustain your prime minister position. As I said, you can do a lot of shenanigans in a prime ministerial situation too. You can do a lot of shenanigans and corruption also in a parliamentary system. Kung talagang loko-loko yung leaders or mga trapo, they can actually game the system. And that's why even though Anwar Ibrahim's party and coalitions were able to consistently do well in multiple elections from late 2000 onwards, he was repeatedly denied the highest office of the land. So, grabe yun. So, you could see talaga kung maraming trapo, even if parliamentary system, even if presidential, magkakaroon talaga ng kalokohan dyan. Anyway, what I like about Anwar Ibrahim, what I appreciate about him, he's not perfect, he's quite controversial. I have many good friends who know him personally. I have friends who have interviewed him personally. I suggest, among others, of course, yung interview niya with Nikkei Asia a few years ago by a good friend, si James, who wrote about it. Please check that out. I can post that for you. Just for you to have an idea about yung background niya, at also some of the many dimensions that he has. Of course, he's a politician at the end of the day, 'di ba? Hindi naman siya santo, 'di ba? At yun ang parati kong sinasabi, pag nasa politika ka, hindi ka pwede maging santo, because because politics by nature can sometimes be amoral, as Machiavelli put it, right? And of course, that got Machiavelli into trouble for a long time. Good Machiavelli, ano naman tayo. But you get my point. No, we need people to get things done, and sometimes they're hard moral choices and trade-offs, unfortunately, in politics. No, now balikan natin ito. So hindi natin sinasabi na completely innocent siya. Hindi. You know, he has his own side, right? He's a politician after all. No, so I really suggest you guys to read it on your own. But the point is, Anwar Ibrahim has consistently stood for a kind of politics that is not different very much from the vision, not yung mga shortcomings, but the vision of people like Aquinos, no, for the Philippines, which is more liberal democracy, more progressive values, especially in terms of political rights and civil liberties, less space for fanaticism, partisanship, cult-like politics, and more space for civic engagement. Now, of course, in reality, nagkakulang talaga, including the two Aquino presidents. Nagkakulang sila on many fronts. Their coalitions and yung Liberal Party pa rin yung Pinoy, ang dami mga ano dyan, mga alam niyo na, mga trapos dyan. Given na yan. But they were not original Liberal Party. Nakisakay lang kasi nanalo yung standard bearer nila. So, you know, it's called presidential bandwagon, right? So you don't just blame the Liberal Party, you blame also the system, right? That would even turn something like Liberal Party into what would become a kind of a trapo like party. But even with that, no, Aquino was able to push for some very good reforms, including dun sa, you know, sa tax sa tobacco, reproductive health, so many initiatives to push for greater good governance, greater and good governance. Again, there was shortcomings, but at least there were some moves in the right direction. Not to mention, of course, under Aquino, our growth rates on average were higher than any of other presidents, right? And you know, you can say that President Duterte, of course, he had the misfortune of having to oversee the country during the pandemic. But the reality is that the Philippines did not have to have 5 quarters of recession because few of our neighbors had that much recession. So that means clearly there was also mismanagement and kapalpakan nangyari. Also, of course, on the front of the pandemic management, and you can talk to a lot of real experts who can tell you about that. But going back to this, nagkakulang siya, but he was able to also get a lot of things done, no, including on macroeconomic stabilization, fiscal expansion, and stabilization. Kaya nga si Tatay Digong, nung nanalo siya, ang daming pera ng gobyerno. Yung budget po natin ng more than double, almost triple, nung panahon ni Aquino, from Arroyo to the end of Aquino, our fiscal space almost tripled, right? More than doubled. That's why Tatay Digong had all of this money to push for investments, infrastructure development, etc. That doesn't necessarily excuse the lack of speedy infrastructure development under the previous administration, which would have had run its own risks of potential anomalies, because big ticket infrastructure projects are vulnerable to big anomalies. But nonetheless, it put things into context. That it's not like Tatay Digong napakagaling at walang kwentang isa. Well, actually, dahil nag-save yung dating administration, dahil may macroeconomic stability, dahil marami tayong success in terms of sustaining economic growth. Not so inclusive, unfortunately, but at least on the gross level, we're able to sustain enough growth. That gives resources, fiscal space to Duterte and then succeeding administration to push ahead with big projects, right? Again, yun ang point ko eh. We have to give credit to the Duterte administration for pushing ahead with a lot of good infrastructure projects, especially sa mga probinsya sa LGU level. Not so much on the big ticket part, but maraming nagkakulang. And of course, for continuing some of the big ticket infrastructure projects of Aquino, nakita natin na malapit sa mga airports. But you have to also give credit to the administration, which was able to bring about the economic stability and the fiscal space expansion that allowed for that infrastructure development pick up to happen under Tatay Digong. Do you get what I'm saying? Yan kasi ang problema natin. Gusto lang natin sabihin, masama ito, magaling ito, night and day. No, when in fact, it's like 50 shades of competence and incompetence, right? Some presidents are more competent, some presidents are incompetent, more incompetent, some presidents are more competent on this area, more incompetent on another area, so on and so forth. But the overall score, I think anyone who really knows, who really checks the facts, who's not, whose judgment is not clouded by fake news and hatred and lack of historical contextualization, they would put Pinoy among the better Filipino presidents. And that's also the opinion of no less than the current Prime Minister of Malaysia, who took many inspiration from the struggles and difficulties and lahat ng mga dinaanan ng mga Aquinos. And unfortunately, with the new movie on, yung mga made in Marites, yung mga ganyan movie na yan, unfortunately, the plight of the Aquino people will continue with all of these disinformation attacks and shenanigans and bardagulan against them. But that's the point. You don't give up. You fight. You continue to fight for the higher cause, because fighting for democracy and freedom is more than just your ego, more than just your turfs, more than just your image, more than just your family interest. There's a lot involved in there. And it was precisely the sacrifice of the Aquinos on many fronts, which has not been unfortunately appreciated enough, especially in recent years, because of fake news, because of misinformation, because of decontextualization of our politics, etc., because of natural and understandable frustration of people. You didn't appreciate yan. But let me show you mga kameta, what are the things that the current Prime Minister of Malaysia said about our former president, which is interesting because that's not what we see among our own supposed leaders. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about the progressive one, but the average ones, right? Yeah. So ito yung mga tweets ni Anwar Ibrahim about the obituary. Ito yung obituary niya kay Pinoy the other year. No? So sabi ni Anwar Ibrahim, while his own president is... Okay, let me put the full one. Andiyan naman Noy Noy, di ba? Andiyan naman nakalagay naman para makita niyo mga kameta, di ba? Hindi naman tayo nag-invento. It's on account of Anwar Ibrahim. Not only yung verified account niya on Twitter, alam ko marami na nagsasabi naman, ito verified kasi Elon Musk. No, you can check it also on his mga kameta. You can also check it on his Instagram na verified account also. Ito yung sinabi ni Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim sa kanya, no? While his own presidency was marred with national tragedies and natural disasters, of course, yung Yolanda, and yes, may kakulangan din ng gobyerno, but let's not also forget that Moros and some of the people were there on the ground, risked their lives. Of course, they could always do better, but I suggest check the report of Asian Development Bank for a more proper analysis of saan nakatama at saan nakamali. No? Hindi lang yung mga Dolomite trolls na yan. No, ito yung sinabi ni Anwar Ibrahim, no? Despite everything, Pinoy never lost sight of using his power to put the people of the Philippines on the path towards progress. Noy was one of the kindest of human beings, always collected and even-tempered. He was that of rarest of an endangered breed, that of the principled politician. I mean, that sounds interesting. Not principled politician, some would say that as an oxymoron, but for Anwar Ibrahim, that's what Aquino was. He was a politician. He was a statesman for that matter, but he kept his integrity. That's why there's no corruption case against any Aquinos. Real corruption case. Wala. As far as we know. And please lang, if you want to bring the Hacienda Luisa, etc., tanungin mo yung crony ni Marcos, di ba? Ni Marcos Sr. Sige, sila kuhaan ko. Okay. Anwar Ibrahim, rather still, he was one who always had an eager curiosity to learn new things beyond his already vast knowledge. My heart is filled with the outpouring of support and mourning for a real friend from both those who supported him and even from those who opposed him. No. In fact, he had even more to say about him. Andito dapat yan. Let me pull it out. You can see it yourself. And my point is, why should a politician from a wealthier and more developed country and supposedly perfect parliamentary system, as some trolls and people who have no idea about political dynamics put it, why would someone like that have to praise even someone like Aquino? No, but he did, because he saw the numbers, he saw the results, he saw the struggles. He was not blinded by hatred. He was not foolish enough to buy disinformation and misinformation. He knew things himself. He would come to the Philippines in the past. May mga times na nagbabarong siya. May mga times na he would give lectures on Rizal, for instance, and come to the Philippines. No, so this guy knows the Philippines very well, and knows that the Philippines, despite its poverty, despite its shortcomings, despite many difficult challenges we have been facing, at least we tried. Under the Aquinos at least, to bring about a measure of dignity and measure of success, a measure of prosperity to the Filipino people. Again, I'm saying there were a lot of shortcomings, and yun parati kong problema dun sa mga, especially mga quote-unquote dilawan, no? Na ayaw nilang tanggap ng any kind of mea culpa, kasalanan ng voters, kasalanan ng ibang politician. But of course, you have to take also responsibility. After all, you also had your time in power, right? A sort of self-awareness is very necessary. A source of recognition of shortcomings necessary, because that's how you win over people, you gain their trust, that's how you improve, that's why you become less, ay nako, hindi politically correct yata sasabihin ko. Basta, alam niyo na, less bakit di lumalabas? Hinahanap ko to wait lang Pinost ko kasi to dito sa Twitter account natin. Where is it? I think we're near. Dito ko na lang ilabas if gano'n. Aha, ito. Malapit na mga meta. Huwag kayong magalit. Relax lang tayo dyan. Good people tayo. Mabait tayo. Ay naku, sa dami ko na-post dito sa... Oh, by the way, kanina, nagre-reply si pangalan niya. Nag-reply si James Dorsey. Si Dorsey, Jack Dorsey, yung pangalan niya. Yung founder ng wala na lobat talaga, kailangan magpahinga. Hindi yung founder ng Twitter, nag-reply din sa tanong ko kay Elon Musk. Ayan. So, meron tayo on the record, no less than, gusto ko lang ilabas to. Because I want to transition to the important issue that I want to really talk about. Oh, ito. While his own presidency was... Okay. Yun na, andito na. So, nabasa na natin. Okay. Alright. Now, mga kameta, please read this on your own and read also about the background why Anwar was such a big fan of the Aquinos. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'm saying it puts things into perspective. Baka naman may ginawa rin silang tama. Kaya yung mga leaders sa ibang country, kahit yung mga kapitbahay natin na mas mayaman, mas progresibo sa atin, at least on the economic front, looked up to them because they understood the context of that. Now, sabi natin, pag-usapan din natin si Leni kasi all of these are related. All of these guys are related. First and foremost, ang sinasabi natin dito is, okay, actually, let me transition na because this is gonna answer what I wanted to raise. I really suggest, guys, and first of all, congratulations to a good friend of ours, to Christian Esguerra. Naka 100,000 YouTube subscriber na siya, so meron na siya yung, yung parang silver, ganun. Hoy, mag-subscribe na kayo sa YouTube ko, para may ganyan na rin tayo soon. Na naman tayo. But my sincerest congratulations to Christian Esguerra for doing a very great job. Hindi pa yata tayo imbitado sa show niya, but okay naman. It's okay. Ayan naman. No naman, I mean, I appreciate what he's doing. And especially some of his episodes are really, really good. And I really suggest, mga kameta, especially yung mga nagsusupport kay Leni, yung mga nagwo-wonder saan papuntang bansa natin, etc. I really suggest, guys, read and check this one, no? And not read, check this one. Alam mo, gandang na. Mahal na mahal ko kayo so pagod na ako, windang na ako, go pa rin ako. Ganyan talagang work ethic, go pa rin. Anyway, Ilocano. Please check this on YouTube. Who should now lead the opposition? So this is a relatively recent interview he did with two of Leni supporters. What very interesting back and forth discussion. Very, very interesting one. Let me just give you guys a kind of a flavor lang para makita nyo na anong pinag-usapan natin. Talagang good job by Christian Esguerra for overseeing this kind of interviews. Really good job, and I hope to see more of that. We hope to do our own version. By the way, guys, God willing, I'm working on a number of projects right now. Kaya medyo busy rin tayo. Dahil ako mga inaayos-ayos na proposals, etc. Para meron din tayo mga more interactive discussions, etc. Ilabas ko lang to para makita nyo mga kameta. Nabibigli ata yung iba na medyo low bat na si Richard. Sanay kayo kasi sa akin na yung hyper parate. Tao lang po. Let me check. Bakit ganun? Ano nangyari? Wala. Production team. Nasaan na kayo? My non-existent production team. Okay. Labas natin to. Yan. Panoorin niyo yan mga kameta ng sandali. Para lang ma-appreciate nyo yung... Sandali lang. Of course, you're free to see it yourself. Check. Interact.
No choice. No distortions.
For those who want to continue supporting the kind of journalism that we do. So yung labanan ng disinformation for President against now President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos, the views of bayan, no? her, no? During
Okay,
the
ito guys, so check nyo yan.
2022
Magandang
elections.
interview
Tama
yan.
ba, Carlo?
Right. Yes, I campaigned for VP Leni.
Si Mr. Carlo Sales, okay? Isa
Yeah.
siyang supporter.
Ito.
Mentor na Girian. I-correct
Check
na
nyo
lang
yan, check nyo
mamaya
yan,
sa
check
ating
nyo yan.
mga guests,
Maganda yan.
no? May
Sa mga
mainit na
YouTubers, don't worry,
balitaktakan
propose mo
ng
yun.
social media tungkol doon sa direction na dapat tahakin ng political opposition, especially yung role ni former Vice President Leni Robredo. So yung pag-uusapan natin ngayon. I'd like to introduce first si Mr. Carlo Sales, okay? Isa siyang supporter ni former Vice President Leni Robredo. You campaigned for her, no? During the 2022 elections. Tama ba, Carlo?
Right. Yes, I campaigned for VP Leni, kay Senator Kiko, and the entire Sambayan State. So, yes.
Ayun. Tapos incidentally, si Carlo is a member of the Bagong Alyansa Makabayan, pero we have to make it clear, he's not showing up, he's not appearing dito sa ating programa ngayong gabi, representing the views of Bayan, no?
Right. Yes. So, personal opinion ko lang, personal stance lang.
Sabi niya kasi, tinanong ko siya kanina, ano bang magandang description sa'yo? Sabi niya, I'm just a regular Leni supporter. Haha. Yeah. During the election season, I did what most Leni supporters did, house to house sa communities, namimigay ng posters, leaflets, joined her rallies and events. Tapos sabi niya, nagkaroon ka ng podcast during the campaign, no?
Yeah, so may podcast ako, may small following siya. So, I think 2 weeks before the campaign, I decided to record a podcast. In-explain ko lang kung bakit meron tayong civic and ethical duty to vote for VP Leni Robredo. So, yun.
Sige, mamaya pag-usapan natin yan. Yung ating pangalawang guest, kilala ito na marami sa inyo, no? Si Jover Laurio.
Yan!
Nasa
Go,
likod
Jover.
ng Pinoy Ako Vlog. Kasi Pag, sikat na sikat ang ano na yan.
Yeah, go!
Christian.
Yan,
Jover,
mga
good
natin
evening.
dyan. Sa
Good
mga
evening,
Twitter na
good
natin
evening,
dyan.
Carlo. Good evening, Christian.
Evening.
Magkakalala na ba kayo personally? Hindi. Online lang.
Twitter lang.
Twitter
Online.
lang.
Nagkakasagutan lang
Okay yan, ha?
online.
O sige, magkakilala na kayo ngayon. Okay na.
Right.
Okay, o sige. Bakit natin in-invite ang dalawang Leni supporters dito? Kasi
Yan,
gusto
yan,
natin
check
makita
niya.
yung perspective nila. Kasi minsan, pag pinag-uusapan, ano ba yung direction ng political opposition, ang kinakausap yung mga political analysts. Usapan natin yung mga talaga naghirap during the campaign, no?
Tama.
Incidentally, medyo hindi yata pareho ng perspective yung ilan sa mga supporters ni former Vice President Leni Robredo. Ang take-off natin itong tweet ni Carlo. Meron siyang tinilit isang araw ba ito, Carlo?
I think so. Nung Friday yata, if I'm not
Wala
mistaken.
magbabasa.
Okay.
Ayan, sabi ni Carlo, ito personal take ha. Subukan kong kopyahin yung boses mo. Okay. Not the stuff of the orgs I belong to. Medj disappointed. Yeah, medyo Gen Z yun. Medyo disappointed siya at may feeling ako na iniwan tayo ni VP Leni sa laban. Sure, there's Angat Buhay NGO pero feeling ko she could have done more as the face of the broad opposition against the Marcos Duterte clique. Ano nag-trigger sa inyo to? And bakit mo naman nasabi? Medyo mabigat yung mga salita, no? Feeling mo
Actually,
iniwan kayo ni VP Leni.
in retrospect and in reading yung tweets din ng ibang, kasi madami nag-quote tweet sa akin. I think medyo mabigat nga in the sense na parang iniwan or what. Pero ang gusto ko lang talagang sabihin dyan, and sana maintindihan din ng mga tao, di ba? Like, where I'm coming from, bilang isang aktivista din na sanay sa, sa grassroots organizing, sa mga community development work, sa mga rallies and whatnot. Parang sa akin, personally, yun yung parang form or yun yung idea ko ng laban, diba? So, when I said na feeling ko iniwan niya tayo sa laban, na I think nakukulangan lang ako doon sa... Kasi...
Yan, so
nanalo
ito yung
si
isang
Marcos,
perspective mga kameta. Yung sinasabi na
ang daming
parang
issues, diba?
feeling nila
Inflation,
medyo
sumisirap na presyo ng
nagkakulang
langis,
sila dun sa
price ng sibuyas,
ginagawa ni
diba?
Leni after
Mahal na yun.
tapos ng
And
election.
May nabasa pa ako news articles na parang yung Metro Manila, grabe yung traffic niya, like last tayo sa listahan. All of these issues, is parang feeling ko sobrang laki ng influence ni VP Leni na baka if magsalita siya tungkol dito, if banata niya diretso si Marcos, baka parang mas mag-galvanize yung movement.
May troll na naman ako
Ganun
dito
lang.
sa YouTube.
Again, hindi ko naman sinasabi na parang inuutusan ko siya or what not. Parang opinion ko lang naman yun tungkol sa kung ano yung katayuan natin ngayon after the election season. Sabi ko nga dun sa mga kasunod na tweets, parang again, take ko lang yun. Nag-expect ako, pero that's on me. That's a me problem. That's not a VP Leni problem. If na-disappoint ako yun, kasi ako yung nag-expect. Hindi naman, di ba? I mean, she has Angat Buhay and all of her other public speaking engagements, which I salute. So, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, sige. Isa sa mga sumagot na sa tweets ni Carlos, si Jover, no? Iba, ano bang tingin mo rin sa tweet niya? Sabi niya, it's personal to him, no? Pero laki na impact, no?
Totoo naman. Para naman sa akin, parang
nagka-cut yata si
Kasi
Jover
sabi nga ni
dito,
Carlo,
hindi sa akin
nandyan
yan.
yung Angat Buhay. Nandyan yung fight against this information in a bigger level, international level na. At kung napapansin mo, Carlo, every time may sakuna sa atin, nasa top of the situation sa VP Leni, nagmo-monitor. So, parang kaya medyo hindi ako nag-agree sa'yo ng iniwan. Kasi visible pa rin naman siya. Siguro, hindi lang pareho sa paglaban na in-expect mo, pero malaki yung natutulong niya. Kasi, nag-i-inspire siya sa atin for the movement. Parang galing sa kanya, sinindihan niya, nagliyab yung isang movement, ngayon, nasa atin na kung ipapagpatuloy. Alam mo kung bakit napakadaling mag-mobilize ng Angat Buhay? Kasi yung volunteers, intact, nandun pa sila. So to say na iniwan tayo, parang ang bigat. Kaya kung napansin mo, maraming nag-quote tweet sa'yo na nag-disagree. Diba?
Right.
I'm sure napansin mo yon.
Yes.
Oo. Parang, eto nga, dapat nga hindi na natin siya obligahin, diba? Kasi private na siya eh. Pero mula sa simula, hindi pa siya wala pa siya sa politika, hindi nga siya nakapag-mourn sa asawa niya eh. Kasi sumabak agad para magsilbi for so long. Pagbuong pamilya niya, in-attack ng trolls. Ngayon dapat private citizen, dapat happy na siya. Pero hindi niya tayo iniwan. Sa abot ng kaya niya, sa abot ng capacity na meron siya, nandun pa rin siya.
Okay, of course, please guys go and check it yourself. I'm not gonna cross-stream yung pinaghirapan naman ni Christian Esguerra. So please go diretso sa site niya, dun sa Facts First on YouTube. Check it yourself. I'll also post the link sa baba para you'll see more of it. I just felt na mahalaga na guys, kahit papaano naman, titingnan nyo yung, you have an idea of why this is very important. Of course, nagpapasalamat din ako sa ating vlogger friend na si Mark Gamboa na for also forwarding this to me and some of the other discussions that he found interesting in the other camp. No? So please guys, check this out. Very, very interesting. Because para sa akin naman, ito talaga naman ang kailangan natin sa isang demokrasya eh. Hindi lang diskusyon ukol dun sa kakulangan ng gobyerno or yung saan nakatamang gobyerno at saan natin kailangan suportahan. Pero dapat magkaroon din tayo ng, talagang matinong pagsusuri, no? Dun sa mga tama at saka kakulangan ng opposition sa mga nakaraan na elections, no? Hindi lang yung 2022 but also 2019 elections. So in 2019 elections, worst performance in more than 80 years dun sa senatorial race for the opposition. Isa, wala. Although two independents, Nancy Pinay and Grace Poe made it. And then, of course, itong 2022 elections, ako kasi ang position ko parati is I believe Leni has huge potential. I think she easily can win the Senate race if she runs. And ako, based on nakita natin, si Pia Wurtzbach, 3 beses bago naging Miss Universe. Si Bongbong Marcos, talo sa VP, pero big time na nanalo siya dun sa presidential because of course, nagsama sila ng Duterte and Marcos houses, so medyo malaki yung parang double team yun eh. Parang tag team yun eh, di ba? So for me, just because natalo ka sa isang elections, that doesn't mean na tapos na. Tapos ng career mo, mag-retire ka na. Not necessarily, especially if you're someone as young, someone as charismatic, as someone as motivated, and someone as resilient and gritty. Not only resilient, but gritty as Leni Robredo. Now, of course, ang debate ngayon is, could Leni have been more proactive against fake news and disinformation early on? I think the former vice president herself kind of admitted that, right? You can check it yourself. Could she have been clear about her presidential campaign and been much more, I would say, let's say, proactive in building a coalition? Yes. I think aminado rin naman sila na may mga pagkakulang sila base dun sa mga analysis natin, conversations natin. People are very familiar with the internal conversations, etc. So I can see there is a degree of awareness. In fairness naman, ako naman, I think Leni Robredo is doing the right thing by focusing on much more constructive message and much more positive narrative and much more focusing on actual things she could do via Angat Buhay and other kind of mechanisms to help the Filipino people even when she's no longer in office. I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing for now, especially because honeymoon period ni Pangulong Jr., Marcos Jr., and people want some sort of, yes, unity at this point kasi may bomb of unity in the 6 months to 1 year honeymoon period. Sa parang ni Duterte, tatay di ka parang 6 years yung honeymoon. But as far as the levels of tolerance for incompetence and all was concerned. But going back here, I think it makes tactical sense for Leni to be more focused on the constructive, positive messaging and actions and interventions. But of course, down the road, the question is how far will Leni go in terms of remobilizing the opposition, giving it a second life, crystallizing yung bibong toddler na pink movement into an actual political movement, into an actual electoral force. Is she going to build the networks on the ground with different forces across the country? Let's see. But I think for now, I kind of agree dun sa ginagawa ni Leni because I feel it makes sense given the bigger picture of bomb of unity since honeymoon period ng bagong presidente. And the sensibility here is that you have to give the new president a chance. So I think here, I think Leni is doing a good job, the right thing. But we need more clarity down the road. Is she going to be the real leader? Is she going to be the leader, or she's going to be one of the leaders? Is she going to be the primus inter pares? Is Riza Ontiveros the next? Are they going to team up, right? So for me, these are interesting questions that, and this brings me to my second point, and I want to end on this note, mga kameta, kasi medyo kailangan natin ng mga, windang na ako, is, yan din na kailangan natin. We need not bitterness, we don't need toxicity, we don't need ego trip, petty wars, mga ganun. And I'll be very honest, one of the things that hurts me and disappoints me is to see some of the people that I feel should have known better, much more concerned with turf wars and much more concerned with their pettiness and ego and all of that, than actually having the kind of discussion that we have here. Ako, I don't mind, you know? I had a debate with one of the bloggers of Duterte in the past. Ang dami nag-bash sa atin, but for me, like, so what? I held my ground, I made the point, na hindi na-appreciate yan, bahala sila. Kung duwag sila, they cannot do what I'm doing. Problema nila yan, di ba? And I've been very consistent with my convictions, which what I stand for. I'm not partisan, but I stand for the right values. And second, I always made it clear, I'm open to discussion and debates, public discussion. Now, kung takot ka makipag-debate sa akin, because you know you cannot handle it, then problema mo na yan. Aminin mo na yan sa sarili mo at sa ibang tao. But please lang, alright? Don't go out there and try to, throw blind items me or something like that. I'm gonna call you out. Especially dun sa mga iba na they owe big apologies. Dun sa mga kasyungan na mga analysis nila nung election time. Alright? They had no business to make analysis on certain areas. They pushed it. They pushed false narratives. Binastos pa nila yung mga colleagues natin dyan na political scientists, etc. Binastos pa nila later on yung mga colleagues natin dyan na historians, etc. At tapos ito. Alright? So, ako, kaya nga gusto ko itong interview ni paring Christian Esguerra, not Christian Dior. Tulad ng mga nag-comment dyan. Because, you can see, two supporters of Leni, different perspectives, and yet they can have a constructive, sound, respectable discussion. And ako, I'm completely open to the same thing, whether it's with the other side, it's with the government side, with the anti-government side, with the Leni side. I don't mind, because I'm here on my own. Wala akong gang, wala akong kabal, wala akong grupo, etc. I can fight my own fight. I'm on my own, and I have you people who supporting me or there for me, and I stand by the courage of my convictions. No, I mean, yes, and I apologize to when I go a little bit abrasive, aggressive, etc. Minsan alam mo naman tayo, may pagkapardagulan tayo, but my intentions were always the same. We need a proper national discourse, especially among those who should know better, so that maangat natin yung level ng discourse sa ating bansa. Anyway, ako, yun lang sa akin. I have many frustration and disappointment in life, but I must, as much as possible, I don't want to be bitter at ayoko ng mga toxic people and bitterness out there. And that's why it's super na-appreciate ko itong discussion between Jover and between Mr. Sales, and I hope we'll have more and more of this. I hope we can host more of this. I hope Christian Esguerra will do more of this. I hope they'll host more of this. I hope we'll have more discussions like this. And I know that President Aquino, I know that Leni, of course, this, they would have or they are appreciating this kinds of conversation that we saw in the interview of Christian Esguerra. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay. Let's debate. Let's discuss. I have the data. I have the arguments. No problem. And I never shirked from public discussion or debate. It's in my system. I am by nature someone who's for public discussions. I've been doing this. So we were competitive debaters during college. We debated all around the world. So I have no problem debating with anyone, right? And as much as possible, I try to research and do my assignment, etc. Unfortunately, of course, social media sometimes is not the best place to have in-depth discussions dahil nagiging bardagulan, pataasan ng, alam mo yung ganun. But sometimes, unfortunately, social media is a way to at least get people to think about certain things. And sometimes you tend to be a little bit provocative, but the intention always is clear. Anyway, I really suggest you guys to check it. I'll send the link there para you can check it more. And I really hope we'll have more of this. Ayoko ng toxic. Ayoko ng bitter. Ayoko ng duwag. Ayoko ng epal. Ayoko ng, you know what I'm saying? Ayoko ng negativity. Ayoko ng self-deprecation. Ayoko ng, backstabbing. These are not good. And I don't like it also when I become toxic and negative. I don't like it because that's not good for anyone. That's not good for us. That's not good for you. That's not good for our country. So I hope this interview that Christian Esguerra did, this kind of discussions will continue. We'll see more of supporters of Leni with different perspectives engaging each other, or supporters of democracy for that matter. No one has a monopoly. No one has a monopoly on the good. No one can say, kami lang, ako lang ang tama sa pagdating sa struggle for democracy. Na ako lang tama pagdating sa ano. No. We can debate it. Let's discuss it. There are many platforms to do that. We can write columns. We can do social media posts. We can do proper discussion. Walang problema. Ako, as far as I'm concerned, I can debate anywhere. Right? Kanina, I only had 2 hours sleep. Boom, I go. I give a talk with the Stanford University webinar. Go. Check it yourself. I can send the link. I don't shirk from responsibility. I'm willing to cut on my sleep, cut on my rest. As long as I can do my job, I do my job. And I do my job as best as I can, right? And I'm sorry, hindi lang tayo sa tabi-tabi lang. We are giving talks all around the world. From Stanford University to Jakarta to Vietnam to Europe, etc. I've been giving talks all around the world on many, many issues because I care about these issues. They're close to my heart. They're close to my convictions. I do my due diligence. All right? I do my research, I do my scholarship, double digit ang H-index ko, that speaks for itself, right? Dun sa mga hindi niya alam ang H-index, paki-check niyan. That's not easy, all right? I do my best here. And kung nagkakulang ako or sometimes I go over the board, my apologies. I sincerely apologize for that. But you should always know that my intention is what I always say it is when it comes to bringing a better discourse for the country and pushing forward the level of discussion. Wag to toxicity, wag to bitterness, wag to sa mga, ay nako. Alright, I don't want to overdo it because that in itself creates negativity, right? So let me say, I'm glad that we at Jover and some of the supporters of Leni are starting discussion. I'm glad that real journalists like Christian Esguerra are also starting this kind of discussions. I like it, I want to see more of it, and I look forward to more of it. So maraming salamat sa ating mga kameta. I really appreciate it sa mga lahat na nagbigay ng comments, ng suggestions. Yes, kahit yung mga nagtatroll, yung mga galit sa akin, it's okay. I understand. Maybe I said something, it hurts your feeling. Maybe you have different political points of view. But hindi kita pinilit para pumunta dito sa platforms ko. You came here, right? So, ano na lang. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate dun sa mga nagbigay ng stars and support, etc. Hindi naman tayo vlogger by profession and all of that. But in a way, you guys made me value vlogging in ways I never thought was possible. I never envisioned vlogging the way I see it right now, which is it's actually a very democratic way of getting the right message out. So maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga sumuporta sa atin. Sorry, I need to get some rest. I'm really exhausted. I hope you appreciate that. Come what may, I always try my best to at least give a 15, 20, something 30 minutes intervention. And today, medyo humaba ng konti. Again, pasensya na sa mga pagkakulang natin. Pasensya na if I said some things that, didn't make you guys happy. But always know I'm giving my best here. I'm really, really giving my best. You can see it in my eye bags. You can see it in my effort. You can see everything like that. All right? Kitang-kita niyo naman. I'm doing really my best here. So please continue to support us because I cannot do this alone. I need your support. I need you guys to be there for me. And I need your prayers. I need your love. And malapit na. Malapit na December, right? So soon it will be a new month, a blessed month. So happy November, guys. Thank you so much for making November a beautiful month. It was a difficult month. It was beautiful because thank God, really salamat sa Diyos, we had the opportunity to get some respite. The night jogs, the morning walks, the beach, whether it was in Da Nang in Vietnam, whether it was in Bali in Indonesia. I really appreciate it. I'm really grateful to the Lord for giving me that opportunity. Of course, these are all supported by these are all paid, by organizers, right, who invite us for events, or I'm sometimes very glad that we have friends who host us, etc. So hindi tayo mga anak mayaman or mga influencer na pa fun. No. I always work, in Bali. Within few hours, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to do a BBC interview. My last interview that day was 8, 9 p.m., right? You can see it yourself. And I was working throughout the day covering ASEAN, etc. In Da Nang, the same thing, writing left and right. But despite the hard work and schedule, I'm glad that we had time to have our metas. I'm glad that I had time to witness the bounty of God's creation, the beauty of God's creation. I'm glad I had some time to have a bit of diet, a bit of exercise, and take care of myself. And I'm really glad that I feel the love, I feel the support. Believe me, things would have been much more difficult. Perhaps things would have been much more lonely, much more difficult if not for the support of people like you and my loved ones in my life. Alam na nila sino sila, diba? Have been there for me. So I really appreciate it. And again, pasensya na lang sa pagkakulang natin, etc. But you see, I'm really giving my best here. So thank you so much for making November a beautiful month, a productive month. Salamat sa Diyos. Salamat sa inyong lahat. And hopefully, God willing, December, it will be blessed month for everyone. With 3 years of pandemic, many difficulties we have been facing. I hope it will be a time for some soul searching. I told you guys na nasa Bali tayo, I'm looking forward to also an opportunity to have much more spiritual discussion with you guys. Because to be honest, I couldn't get through all of this trolling and trashing and mudslinging and backstabbing and duwag style stuff. All these years, not this year, not last year, but all these years, all of this, professional rivalries, nonsense, people would badmouth us because they're insecure about our achievements, because they're insecure about their presence, because they're, I had to go through so much. And what kept me together was my faith in the Lord, the love of my family, and at the same time, my constant efforts to read up self-help books in like reading on stoicism, ikigai, wabi-sabi, all of these things, this Oriental philosophy, Western philosophy, Greco-Roman philosophy, Persian poetry, all of these things. We have been checking all of this, Rumi, and that's a part of me that we haven't explored as much in our vlogs and all. And hopefully, if you guys are supportive, we can do kind of a book talks, more spiritual, something different. Because honestly, politika, especially sa Pilipinas, can get very frustrating, can get very difficult. But it's a fight worth fighting. Let's fight the good fight. And as Anwar did it. After 30 years of struggle, he did it. So please don't be discouraged by one setback or two. If there's one thing that Admiral Ibrahim of Malaysia shows is this, which is what Churchill kept on saying, victories are fleeting and defeats are reversible. What counts is to keep on fighting even after you're down once or twice or more, right? It's the courage to continue. It's the courage of conviction. It's the grit. It's the anti-fragility, right? Those are the things that matter. And I always say it, and you keep on hearing this in my spontaneous outbursts and discussions here and there. Ay, ang haba na, isang oras na pala tayo. I wanted to just talk 15 minutes lang. Basta, I want you guys to know what's my thought process here. Na hindi na ako dito para magpartaguran, vloggers, whatever. I'm sorry, guys. I have more important things to do in life. There's so many more important things in life than our ego and turf wars and everything like that. And I hope all of us will grow up. All of us had to have humble pies. I made my mistakes. I'm sure. Hopefully, yung iba na ang dami nilang mali and all, they will also recognize it by konting self-awareness. At least may self-awareness tayo, nagkakulang tayo, etc. We try to improve ourselves. But I think we also have to have proper discussions, about the philosophy of life and how to be better persons. Because before being better citizens or better leader, you have to be a better person. All right, that's a very, very important thing. So spiritual well-being is very important. Spiritual growth is very important. Okay, mag-yoga na ako mamaya. All right, thank you very much, guys. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Ang daming drama. Drama. Mababash na naman tayo. I-clip naman ng mga trolls natin yan. Uy, si Darian drama. Sige lang, go lang. Whatever, do what you can. Okay? As if naman. All right, thank you very much, guys. Maraming salamat. God bless. I really appreciate it.